your developmental delay. Next page. Okay, second trimester, what are the causes? Basically the pregnancy complications which may have an secondary effect, secondary complications in the child. Okay, such as preeclampsia, eclampsia, hypoglycemia in mother, hyperglycemia in mother, GDM, oligohydramnios. These are all polyhydramnios, maybe secondary to baby, but also because of maternal causes. So third trimester, what are the causes? What are the causes which, what are the etiologies causing developmental delay? Are foul smelling liquor, PPROM or PROM. These are all the clues that tells that there may be some amount of infection in the mother, which might have caused early or late onset sepsis in the child, which causes developmental delay. See, basically, someone is asking, GDM causes developmental delay in the babies. Okay, you can't tell. See, can any insult to the growing brain, any insult to the growing brain that is less than 2 years, any insult it may be in the form of hypoxemia, ischemia, thrombosis, anything will cause developmental delay. Okay, so maybe congenital anomalies, maybe some gene defects. These are all causes for developmental delay. Okay, so you can't rule out that child GDM will never cause developmental delay. Okay, there may be an insult. Okay, because see, GDM, supposing GDM is having, the baby may be having hypoglycemia. See, that is an insult which is causing developmental delay. Okay, that has to be ruled out. Okay, regarding labor, we know what are the causes of development. There may be difficulty in instrumentation in delivery. There may be prolonged labor, which may be assisted delivery, or there may be a condition where the child should, and the mother should undergo cesarean section because of hypoxemia or ischemia. So these are all some of the causes which causes. So which are the some of the causes for causing instrumentation because of trauma. There may be some amount of insult to the brain. Okay, next. I think we discussed regarding natal history.
So we discussed regarding low birth
weight. Next. I think we discussed regarding developmental. Okay. Okay, next.
Sir,
okay.
Many people have doubt regarding seizure. What is the history to be taken, sir?
Okay, I'll explain. We'll go. Can you go? Okay, regarding seizure. Okay, so once the child comes with seizure, you ask, when did it start? If the onset is sudden, then it most probably is a seizure. It's a paroxysmal event. Okay, basically it's a paroxysmal active event which is sudden. So it may be many things. It may be jitteriness, it may be a stuttering event, it may be migraine, or it may be a transient ischemic attack. Okay, it may be a stroke. Okay, these are all seizure mimics. So we know that these are all paroxysmal event. So once you know this paroxysmal event, you have to differentiate between these events. Okay. These how to differentiate between these events are, you have to ask what are the motors, whether the seizure is motor or non-motor. Regarding motor part, the child will be having to and fro movements. It may be anything. It may be bicycle type of movements. It may be infantile spasms wherein your head falls, like such as salam spells. It may be a clonic type wherein there is a sustained clonus going on. It may be a tonic type wherein there is posturing going on. These are all motor events which suggest that there is some amount of epileptic focus which is causing motor events. So these and all will tell you that child is having an epileptic seizure. Okay, now coming to non-motor part. Okay, subtle signs will tell that this is not seizure, such as you have a paroxysmal event in which child is conscious and child is blinking, and you tend to see that the child is having some amount of paroxysmal. This is probably not a seizure unless and until you are having a staring look. Okay, this point, if the child is having a staring look, then the child may be having some type of seizure, such as absence seizure. Okay, the child may have sudden loss of his tone. Okay, this is called something called as atonic seizure. These are all subtle events which tells that in non-motor part, these are all the events which are telling that there may be an epileptic event going on in the child, such as sustained open eyes, loss of loss of his alertness. These are all the events which tells that child is having seizure. Next part regarding drooling of saliva or uprolling of eyes. In a seizure, in a motor seizure especially, there may be some amount of sympathetic overactivity, such as drooling of saliva. There may be not just sympathetic, there may be parasympathetic activity also. Basically, your autonomous nervous system will take over, autonomic nervous system will take over some of the events, such as passing of urine, passing of stool, drooling of saliva. These are the subtle points which tell that the child is having seizure. Now, how to take history regarding seizure? First, onset. Is it sudden or insidious in onset? Then progression. Once the seizure starts, you describe the event. Like there is some tonic movement. There is tonic movement of which part of your body? Upper limb, lower limb, and all those things. Describe your eyes. What happens to the eyes? Whether the child is moving his eye, blinking his eye continuously, or the child is staring, looking incessantly on one particular object, or there is any uprolling of eyes. Next part. How after onset, then the progression, then the involvement of other systems, such as there may be head falling off the head, there may be loss of consciousness. Okay, these are the associated symptoms. Then how did the seizure come to an end? After some time, or suddenly the child had some jerky movements, and it came after the child had sudden jerky movement, and the child was again conscious. Okay, this has to be explained. With the child, how much duration the child had convulsion, after how much time the child regained consciousness. This has to be explained in detail. And regarding one more thing is regarding, now can you go above a bit? Regarding the weakness, the post-ictal events. Okay, whether the child was having post-ictal paralysis, or post-ictally was the child drowsy, the post-ictally whether the child was having any disorientation, these and all should be taken. I hope I am concise. I mean, I am comprehensive regarding a seizure. I'll see regarding questions. Okay. Okay, these are all, yeah. Should we mention memory of the seizure of the patient? See, these are all memory and all are regarding this. These are all regarding adult patients, not in child. I don't think in a pediatric case we can really ask regarding memory or regarding any events to the child. The child may not answer also. Okay, so I have told about this in a nutshell. We'll go to the past history. Yeah. So what are the associative symptoms that a child, Bhavya, you are there, right? What are the associated symptoms the child will have if there is developmental delay? Can you name some of the associated symptoms?
Respiratory infections.
Very good. Respiratory infections. There may be repeated upper respiratory infections or maybe lower respiratory infections because of
aspiration.
Very good. Aspiration, poor hygiene, anorexia. The child may not. The child may be malnourished. Okay, these are all the conditions where the immunity of the system might be low. So this may be an associated symptom. Next.
Any GIT involvement like vomiting or
vomiting, abdominal pain, functional abdominal pain. Abdominal symptoms can be constipation, can be diarrhea. These are all associated symptoms. Okay, next. UTI. Okay, hearing deficiency, vision deficiency. The child may be having mental retardation, sorry, intellectual disability. Are all the associated. There may be there may be mental retardation, which is now called as intellectual disability. Okay, these are all the associated symptoms in which the child will present. So that history should be taken in your past history. Okay, since the child is not on any treatment, I will just describe how to take treatment history. Okay, if the child is on any anticonvulsants or any other medications, you have to mention what the child is taking, what drug the child is taking, and at what dose the child is taking. Okay, this is very important, because once a child comes to you with the seizure, you have to note that whether the child is having the child was on medication, and should we continue the same medication or should we go on any other medication. Supposing the child is on valproate at the maximum dose, supposing 60 mg per kg, the child is already on valproate. So again the child comes with convulsion. You can't again start on valproate because he has already achieved the maximum dose. His blood is already having maximum levels of valproate, and you again go on giving valproate, the child will not improve, or the convulsion, epilepsy, the seizure may not come down. Okay, so you have to start on another day. So that is the important of why you take treatment history. Regarding family history, what are the family history's importance in a case of developmental delay?
Any familial syndrome, any autosomal dominant conditions, or any other history, like if the family has got a history of Huntington's disease,
if the family is having the child any
similar,
the similar episodes, the neurological manifestations of the others, such as autism in other sibling, may cause autism in this child, which may be some of the cause of developmental delay. Okay, IEMs. Okay, these are all muscular dystrophy, chromosomal elements. These are all some of the events which are seen even in our child. Next. Okay, personal history, socioeconomic history has nothing to do. Basically, personal history, child appetite should be assessed, whether the child is having good appetite or normal or poor appetite, which may be one of the associated symptoms, such as malnourishment, which may cause UTI, URTI, or GE. Okay. So at the end of your history, can you give a diagnosis or a differential diagnosis, Bhavya?
Sir, it could be cerebral palsy,
See, we don't
or
want,
it could be inborn errors of metabolism.
Okay. It could be cerebral palsy. It could be,
yes, it could. Inborn errors of
palsy,
metabolism, neurodegenerative
disease, then?
Neurodegenerative hypothyroidism or any metabolic abnormalities.
Okay.
Then neurocutaneous manifestation, neurocutaneous syndromes.
Okay, so with this development DDs, we will ask one by one question. So this is basically cerebral palsy. What my DDs would be, this is basically a cerebral palsy, or it may be an intellectual developmental delay, or it can be an developmental encephalopathy, or it can be isolated developmental delay. Okay, these are my differential diagnoses. See, you told about IEMs. Is there any history of IEM? Is there any history of vomiting? Is there any history of poor feeding, lethargy? See, as in your history, child is having good appetite, child is improving day by day. So IEM is unlikely.
Yes, sir.
And regarding neuro NDD, that is regressional developmental delay, which is having regression milestones. In your case, the child is having a gaining milestones. Okay, so this is unlikely to be a case of neurodegenerative disorder. Okay, so my DDs would be cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, or isolated developmental delay. Okay, but since there are two systems involved, it still may be CP. Okay, we'll with this DDs, we'll go on with examination of the child. Okay.
Examination. The baby was lying down comfortably with crossed legs, responded to verbal commands. He was moderately nourished. Vitals, temperature afebrile. There were no pooling of secretions. Respiratory rate was 20 cycles per minute. Predominantly abdominothoracic. Pattern and depth were normal. There was no usage of accessory muscles of respiration. Oxygen saturation 98%. Pulse was 120 beats per minute. Regular rhythm, normal volume, normal character. Peripheral pulses were felt with normal intensity. There was no radio-radial delay, and there was no radio-femoral delay. BP was normal. Pallor-icterus, clubbing, cyanosis, edema, generalized lymphadenopathy were not present.
Next.
Anthropometry. The weight was 11.5 kgs. Height 89 centimeters. Weight for height 12, expected to be 12 kgs. Head circumference 45 centimeters and mid-arm circumference of 12.5 centimeters. So the weight was above the third centile. Height was also height was at the third centile. The weight for height was at 15th centile. The head circumference was less than third centile, and mid-arm circumference was above the 50th centile. Upper segment by lower segment ratio was 1.3:1. Head-to-toe examination. The head, there was microcephaly. Anterior and posterior fontanelle were closed. There were no abnormal head movements. Eyebrows were normal. Face, it was normal. There was no dysmorphism noted, and there was no pigmentation. So could you move on to the next?
I am not okay.
Eyes, there was no telangiectasia. Epicanthus inversus was absent. There was no proptosis or enophthalmos, no corneal opacities, no resting nystagmus. The ears were normal. They were not close set. Oral cavity was normal. There was no cleft lip or palate. Palate, there were no abnormalities. Neck, chest, umbilicus were normal. Genitalia, testicles were normal. The back was normal. Extremity, there was no polydactyly noted, and the palm was normal. Skin, it was normal. There was no pigmentation. Feet and orifices were, there was no abnormality detected. There was no congenital anomaly, and there was no skeletal abnormality noted.
Okay, we'll stop. We'll stop here.
Yes,
We'll stop here. Okay, we'll stop here. Can you come to the first slide? Okay. Basically, the child was lying comfortably with crossed legs, right?
Yes, sir.
But what about the general appearance of the child? Was it you are told it is moderately nourished?
Yes, sir.
Was the child irritable? Was the child having any behavioral disturbances? That is I mean that those are all the important points that you have to see in a child with cerebral palsy or any developmental delay. This is one of the important feature, because how do you differentiate a child with global developmental delay and a child with cerebral palsy is that a cerebral palsy child will have normal cortical functions, such as child will be irritable. The child may be child will be having some amount of behavioral disturbances. Okay, whereas in the case of mental retardation, the global developmental delay, that is the child may not be having such disturbed attitude. Okay, that these are the subtle things that you observe in a case of CP and global development. This is GGD. Basically, child was having normal vitals. Okay. Most of the CP child will be having their vitals will be normal unless and until you have seen a child with a precipitated seizure. In those times only the child may have his vitals deranged. Otherwise, the vitals of the child will be basically normal. And regarding head to examination, what are the things that you have to observe regarding? Okay, before coming to that, anthropometry. Okay, a child of CP or any developmental delay will have malnourishment, will be malnourished, will have his anthropometry deranged, and so you have to assess the amount of malnourishment that the child is having. How do you assess? Now the question is, what are the pointers to tell that the child is having malnourishment? Bhavya.
So if the weight for height is less than the third centile.
Very good.
If the mid upper arm circumference is less than 13.5 centimeters.
Okay. I mean 11.5, you say.
11.5 centimeters.
Okay.
Then the skin fold thickness.
And the weight is also, the child is having what do you call it? Child having stunting, whether the child is having wasting. These are all the pointers towards the child is having malnutrition. This is the importance of weight and height. Now coming to the another important and very, very crucial thing in anthropometry in a case of central nervous system is head circumference. Okay. So what is the importance of head circumference?
To find out whether there's microcephaly or macrocephaly.
Okay. Now
to see whether
how do you, first, what is microcephaly? What is microcephaly? What are the causes of microcephaly and macrocephaly?
Microcephaly is when the head circumference is less than 3 standard deviations of the normal, and macro is when it is more than 2 standard deviations of the expected.
Okay. I'll just correct you. Whenever you're telling less than 3 standard deviation, you please introduce the word less than minus 3 standard deviation, because it will not less than 3 standard deviation can also be less than plus 3 standard deviation. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So you have to tell that it is less than minus 3 standard deviation, whereas macrocephaly is more than 2 standard deviation. Yeah, obviously 2 means it's plus 2. Okay. Now causes of it.
Causes for microcephaly could be any encephalopathies or hypoxias. If it is macrocephaly associated with mucopolysaccharidosis, hydrocephalus, or syndromic associations like Down syndrome or
macrocephaly and Downs. Okay, fine. See, some of the causes of microcephaly are very common causes are child may be having normal. It may be the child may be having normal. I mean, microcephaly may be idiopathic. That is the first cause. The other cause may be hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. There may be an insult to the growing brain prenatally or natally, which has caused some of the brain matter to be damaged, and hence there may be microcephaly. Or there may be other craniosynostosis. There may be fusing of the sutural planes, which has caused the brain, the skull not to grow, such as Crouzon syndrome, your Apert syndrome. These are some of the causes of your microcephaly. And there may be some postnatal insults, such as your ischemia, your child may be having hemorrhage, which may have caused the loss of brain matter, which may have caused microcephaly. And if there is progressive loss of head circumference, that is the child having progressive reducing in the head circumference, what should you think of? And it's a female child. A female child with progressively reducing head circumference. One of the important causes of developmental delay is
Rett syndrome.
Yes, Rett syndrome. Okay, these are the you should think of Rett syndrome. These are the causes of microcephaly. Whereas coming to macrocephaly, the child may be having hydrocephalus. The child may be having torch infections, which may have caused hydrocephalus, or maybe there may be postnatal tuberculosis, which may have caused his hydrocephalus. Okay, these are some of the causes of microcephaly, which will cause developmental delay. Okay, and regarding mid-arm circumference has been mentioned. Now coming to head-to-toe examination, what will you see and why do you see? Okay, go on, Bhavya.
Sir, in the head, we have to look for the shape and size and examine the fontanelles as well. So here there was microcephaly and fontanelles were closed. So if at all they were open, then could have thought of hypothyroidism. Okay. And any abnormal head movements can be seen in case of cerebellar disorders like titubation.
Okay.
Then eyebrows were normal. So if there is other
basically corneal Delange syndrome. Okay, we have discussed that in the beginning. Yeah. Next.
Yes, sir. Then in the face, looking for any dysmorphisms in case of congenital anomalies.
We have discussed this also in the beginning. Next.
Yes, the syndromic facies. Then, sir, could you, Ashray, sir, could you move? I'm not able. In the eyes, examine for telangiectasia could be associated with again syndromes like ataxia telangiectasia or epicanthus seen in case of Down syndrome. Proptosis can be seen in case of congenital glaucoma or corneal opacities in case of mucopolysaccharidosis, then or inborn errors of metabolism. Then resting nystagmus again to see if there's any lesion in the brain involving the frontal eye fields or the PPRF. Then ears, again low set ears for Down syndrome. Oral cavity, examining whether there was any, whether the tongue was atrophic or any fasciculations were seen in the tongue, or any cleft lip or cleft palate. Then in the neck, if there's any cardiovascular association, can see for any engorged veins or presence of or visible JVP. In the chest, see for any abnormalities of the skeletal system, or they could be widely spaced nipples in case of Turner syndrome. Then umbilicus to see whether there was any delayed falling of the umbilical cord associated with again leukocyte adhesion defects, etc. Then genitalia again to examine if there was any involvement of the gonads in case of so many syndromes. Then extremity,
regarding
again,
basically the most of the syndromics causes of the
syndromic
developmental delay
associations.
have been ruled out. Okay, in our child,
Yes,
I
sir.
don't think any of these things were not there. And further, I would like to add few points to these head-to-toe examination. Is you have
Yes, sir.
regarding oral hygiene, dental hygiene should be mentioned, and teeth problems are very common in this child group, and also regarding gingival hyperplasia, and also and also some of the bowel and I mean you have mentioned regarding genitalia. That is actually you have covered almost all the important items. Okay, basically it was normal. Next.
Yes, sir.
Next, Ashray, next. Okay, now we'll come to a systemic examination. Okay, so now what we know, it's a case of developmental delay, non-progressive, and we have to now differentiate between global developmental delay and cerebral palsy, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we have some other DDs also. I think we'll come to the DD. We'll come to the diagnosis once we complete our examination. Yeah, go on.
Okay, sir. Systemic examination, central nervous system. The Glasgow Coma scale was 15. Higher mental function, conscious, response to verbal command, is less active and emotionally stable. Cranial nerve examination, optic nerve, able to recognize the mother. Pupillary reflex was present in both the eyes. Oculomotor nerve, able to follow the objects in all directions of gaze. The right and left, both were present. Sir, could you move on? Ashray, sir, could you move on to the next? Direct and indirect light reflex was present, and trigeminal nerve, corneal reflex was present in both the eyes. Facial nerve, there was deviation of the angle of mouth to the left while smiling, and there was absence of nasolabial fold on the left hand side, whereas on the left side of the face was normal. The vestibular cochlear nerve responded to sound, response to sound was present. So probably a left-sided element facial palsy. A motor system examination. The bulk of the muscle was normal in the upper limbs, but the wasting of muscles and flabby muscles was seen in the lower limbs, both right and left. The tone of the muscle on inspection, they were normal in the upper limb, and in the lower limb, they were stiff, and on palpation, they were rigid. Resistance to passive movement was increased in the lower limbs, and there was clasp knife spasticity which was seen. So probably a spastic lower limbs. The upper limbs are normal. There is spasticity which is seen in the lower limbs. Then power examination couldn't elicit power in the upper and lower limbs. I didn't know how.
No, it's okay. If the child is able to lift his upper limb or lower limb, you consider that the child is having a power of around 3+. Okay. In a case of CP or in a case of global developmental delay, you can't do power. You can't ask the child to move against resistance. That is not possible. So if the child is having, if the child is able to move above the plane of the ground, you consider the child is having 3+. And if by chance the child is moving, if you obstruct and if the child is still moving, and you think that okay, I could be I was able to assess the power with some resistance, you can mention 4+. Okay, otherwise it's fine.
Okay,
you can mention that whether the power is 3+ or whatever it is. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Or if the child is not moving, you can tell that the child I couldn't assess. Okay.
Okay, sir. Power was normal in the neck and the trunk because the child was able to lift his head and turn about. And reflexes, superficial reflex, there was extensor plantar response. Deep tendon reflexes, the biceps reflex was normal, supinator was normal, triceps was normal. The knee jerk and ankle jerk were brisk and they were exaggerated. So exaggerated reflexes were seen in the lower limb. Developmental assessment, pull to sit, there was tightening of the muscles of the lower limb which was seen, and on ventral suspension there was a scissoring of the legs which was seen. Primitive reflex, the asymmetric tonic neck reflex was still present, and on glabellar tap response, the blink response was persistent. Then presence of the Landau reflex as well as the parachute reflex.
You go on, Bhavya. We are all listening. I think we
Sir.
can listen. Yeah.
Sir, I can't see the screen.
Oh,
Okay,
you
sir.
don't have a case sheet with you.
Yes, sir, I have it with me.
No, you go on. You go
I'll
on with the
continue.
case sheet. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Abnormal movements like tremor, chorea, athetosis, and dystonia, hemipallismus, etc. were not seen. Sensory system, the baby responded to pain by cry. The other sensations could not be elicited. Cerebellum signs were all absent. The signs of meningeal irritation were absent. The skull and spine, there was McEwan sign absent. Gibbous was not there. Tuft of hair was absent, and kyphoscoliosis as well was absent. Other systemic examinations,
wait. Other system examination are normal, right?
Yes, sir. Everything is normal.
Yeah. Okay. We'll finish. Finish the examination part. What are the positive? Now tell me, with this history, what are the positive things you took from your examination? Just tell me the positive points. Okay. I will not go in detail. Just for the positive points.
Okay,
Sir,
sir.
is the screen visible, sir?
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Tell us the positive points.
Sir, there was facial nerve palsy which was noted, the
Okay.
right-sided facial nerve.
Okay. And what type?
Element type of facial palsy.
Okay. Element type of facial palsy. Okay.
Then in the on motor system examination, the lower limbs were spastic. There was clasp knife spasticity seen in the lower limbs.
Okay.
And the reflexes in the lower limb, all the reflexes were exaggerated, and there was extensor plantar response.
Okay.
Then developmental assessment, there was scissoring of legs that was seen on the on ventral suspension.
Okay.
And also all the primitive reflexes were still present.
Okay.
Was still present.
So basically,
Yes,
so basically, the child was having some amount of spasticity and this thing. Now coming to the facial nerve involvement. Okay. Let us discuss the positive points only. We will not discuss the other points. Okay. Now tell me regarding facial nerve palsy. How did you tell that the child is having LMN palsy?
So because the deviation of angle of mouth was seen, but that can be seen in LMN as well as UN, but the nasolabial fold was absent. So absence of nasolabial fold is seen in case of LMN because UMN supplies both the parts of the face. So it will not be.
See, basically UMN. See, this is I think what you have got it wrong. Okay. See, there is UMN is supplied by both sides of the UMN supplies both upper part of the face and lower part of the face. Right?
Yes, sir.
And LMN supplies the lower part of the face. And in your case, what happened?
Yes, sir. Lower part of the face is affected.
Only the lower part is affected. The upper part is spared,
Yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
So what does that mean?
UMN facial palsy.
Basically, it should be a UMN palsy, right? Okay. So now, why in this child UMN is affected?
It could
I hope all our friends are clear regarding this. The child only the lower part of the face is affected, so it is a UMN type of palsy. If both his upper part of the face and lower part of the face is affected, then it is an LMN palsy, and you will have Bell's phenomena. Okay, that will tell that it is an LMN type of palsy, but we don't have any such features here. So why did this facial nerve get involved? So now you know that it is not an LMN type, it is a UMN type. So where should the lesion be?
Above the level of pons or above the cranial nerve.
So above the level of pons. Okay, above the level of the pons. Okay. So we have what and all we have? We have cortex, we have subcortex, we have basal ganglia, we have midbrain. Okay. These are the 4 sites where the lesion can be in our case. Okay. Anything else we left out? Fine. Internal capsule, we'll see whether the child is having internal capsulation. Okay, next. Okay, next. What next? I mean to tell that what is the next point in favor of where the lesion is? What about the reflexes? No, so first, what about the spasticity? What does spasticity tell? Now we have bilateral lower limb spasticity. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
where should be the lesion be?
Frontal lobe, the motor cortex, the
Yes.
premotor
So
cortex.
the lesion, if the lesion would have been in the internal capsule, or if the lesion would have been in the midbrain, there would have been some amount of crossed hemiplegia. Okay, but we here have both both the limbs are involved. So it should be something involving globally. Either it is in the globally. So spasticity tells that there is some amount of involvement of the white matter. Okay, if the child is having gray matter, gray matter injury, the child will be having hypotonia. But in our history, we have one more pointer to tell that it is also involving gray matter. What is that?
Extensor.
No, in our history, not just examination. In our whole history, we have that. We know that this also involves gray matter. This also involves white matter.
Birth
Okay.
asphyxia, sir.
See, basically, convulsion is what? The convulsion is a gray matter disease. However, it will occur in white matter in a case of progressive lesion where it has involved his white matter, which has gone on to involve his gray matter. Then if the lesion is progressive, the child will be having white matter disease with convulsion. But in our case, the child presented with convulsion at the day of life. I mean, at the first day of life. So
Yes,
that
sir.
points that there is some amount of cortical injury. Okay. Plus, we have spasticity bilaterally, which involves most of the which involves bilaterally. So it should be somewhere which involves a larger area. Okay. So bilateral spastic. So this is what? This is paraplegia, right? Or quadriplegia? Diplegia. Okay.
Yes.
So we know that, see, all the muscles are involved. What about the tone of the baby? You didn't tell tone.
So tone is increased, sir.
Tone is increased in all the limbs. Or
Lower
only lower
limbs.
limbs?
Only lower limbs.
So
Only
tone
lower
is,
limbs, the tone.
so
is
tone is hypertonia.
Yes.
So tone is hypertonia, and it is more in lower limbs than the upper limbs. Compared to upper limbs.
Sir.
So this is a diplegia. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. This is a diplegia where
Yes,
the tone is more increased in the lower limb than the upper limb, and we have a facial nerve palsy. So the facial nerve is palsy. I mean, the facial nerve is involved because of some cortical involvement, right?
Yes, sir.
And we have a diplegia. So now we have, let us go to the, and we have other systems are normal. Okay. What is the topographical involvement?
Spastic diplegia of the lower
It is
limb.
diplegia. It is diplegia of the lower limb. I mean,
Yes.
diplegia. Basically, it's a diplegia. The physiologically it is a hypoxic insult. So it is spastic. Physiologically,
Yes,
it is spastic, and topographically, it is diplegia. So now coming to the point, what are the physiological classifications of involvement in CP? What are the topographical classification of involvement in CP? We'll discuss something regarding that.
Yes, sir. Topographical can be hemiplegia, diplegia.
Tell me the one word which tells that this is topographical and this is physiological.
Anatomical involvement
So
is
physiologically is basically what motor component is involved. Okay, and topographically is what peripheral part of the body is involved. Supposing, what are the classifications in physiological?
hypertonia,
Yes,
dystonia.
spastic, hypotonic, dystonic, mixed, athertotic. Okay, these are the lesions. Yes. These are the classifications in physiological classification of CP. Right? What is the topographic classification?
Diplegia, hemiplegia or bilateral hemiplegia, quadriplegia, tetraplegia.
Okay, the tetraplegia is not there. I don't know.
Okay.
I think triplegia. Tetraplegia is not there. Okay, fine. Now can you differentiate what is spastic CP, hypotonic CP, and athertotic CP, dystonic CP? These four things, and tell me where the lesion is. Okay. I think our case is almost finished. We don't need case sheet, so just reduce your screen. Remove your. What is spastic CP? What is hypotonic CP? What is dystonic CP? And what is arthrotic CP?
Spastic CP is when the pyramidal part of the brain is involved, or the pyramidal tracts are involved, or basically the cortex. If it's hypotonic, it's mainly the extrapyramidal CP which is involved. That could be in like kernicterus, etc. If it is dystonic, then dystonic involves, I think, the extrapyramidal part.
Okay.
I'm
This
not
is-
really sure about that.
Okay. So this is where the lesion is, this part, and this is the physiological changes. Spastic, as you know, the tone will be increased, right? Increased
Yes,
tone.
sir.
So the lesion may be in the periventricular leukomalacia. The lesion may be in the paraventricular. The lesion may be in the cortex, right?
Yes, sir.
Arthrotic CP, you have characteristic chorioarthrosis. So where should the lesion be?
Extrapyramidal,
Basal ganglia.
basal ganglia.
Okay. Putamen. What is this? I don't want this. Okay. Cause. Okay. So what is the cause for spastic CP?
Preterm delivery or
Yeah.
any hypoxia.
Basically preterm,
Perinatal.
IUGR, hypoxia. These are the causes. For arthrotic CP?
Kernicterus.
No, it is hypoxia. Okay. Kernicterus is also one of the cause, hyperbilirubinemia. But it is like mostly it is hypoxic, right? Next, hypotonic
Okay.
CP. Where should be the lesion be?
Same extrapyramidal.
Yes, basal ganglia. It may be in the cerebellum also. Okay, these are the the lesion should be in the cerebellum. Okay, basal ganglia. Right. The and the tone will be
Hypotonic.
hypotonic. Hypotonia. Okay. So this we know. What is dystonia? Now we come to the question. Wait. Now we come to an important point. What is dystonia and what is hypotonia? I'm sorry, spasticity.
When the person tries to do any activity and when at that time if there's abnormal movement, then it's dystonia. Or if it assumes an abnormal posture when the child is doing an activity, it's dystonic.
Very good. I hope everyone understood. See, what is spasticity? Spasticity is something that the examiner gives. Okay. Dystonia is something that you notice, that you see. Before going to this, what some examples, right? You can give. What is examples of spasticity?
Clasp knife spasticity, cogwheel, lead pipe.
That is rigidity. You will not talk about rigidity now. Okay. Clasp knife, dystonia.
Dystonia like hemibalismus, opus cutaneus, retrocollis.
Have you observed posturing?
Posture was normal, sir. Like
No. See, these posturing is also one of the important causes of dystonia. Okay.
Yes.
So if the examiner feels, that is spasticity. If you notice, that is dystonia. And one more difference. Excellent answer, Bhavya. And dystonia is something that you see. I mean, the dystonia lasts for certain moment of certain time. Lasts for certain time. Okay. This is always present. Spasticity is always present. It is quick. This lasts for certain duration of time. Supposing the child is having opus cutaneus, it will last for some amount of time. If the child is having posturing, it lasts for some amount of time. Okay. And if you find dystonia, where should the lesion be?
Extra pyramidal.
It should be in the basal ganglia. Okay,
Basal ganglia.
basal ganglia. And if it is kernicterus, where will the lesion be?
Basal ganglia. Globus pallidus.
The lesion will be in globus pallidus, right? Then coming to spasticity. Spasticity is white matter. Okay. I hope the difference between spasticity and dystonia is clear to everyone. Any questions? Ashay, there are any questions, right?
No, sir.
No.
question.
Okay. I think it is clear. So I think we have completed the physical classification of CP. Now coming to the topographical classification. Okay. So tell me, Bhavya, what are the topographical classification?
Sir, it could be monoplegia,
Okay.
hemiplegia, diplegia, quadriplegia.
Wait. Okay. Hemi. Okay. Quadri. Di.
Paraplegia,
Okay. Double hemiplegia. We have something called
double hemiplegia.
Okay. Double hemiplegia. And we have something called triplegia. I think it is self-explanatory. Okay. All these are self-explanatory. I don't think you have to mention anything. We will discuss regarding last three. Okay. Monoplegia, only one limb is involved. Hemiplegia, only one part of the limb is involved. What are the causes? Hemiplegia.
Stroke.
Yeah. This intrauterine stroke.
Intrauterine stroke.
Yeah. The child is having intrauterine stroke because there may be some amount of thrombophiliac syndromes, factor C, factor S, and antithrombin deficiencies. There may be some amount of immunoglobulins passing through the maternal system, which has caused his stroke in intrauterine life, which has caused one-sided insult to the brain, which has led to the CP. Okay. Now coming to quadriplegia.
Okay.
What is quadriplegia?
Involvement of all the four limbs.
In limb involved, all four are involved. How do you differentiate? See, diplegia also all the four limbs are involved. Double hemiplegia also all the four limbs are involved. Okay.
In
How do you
equal
differentiate?
involvement.
How do you differentiate quadriplegia and diplegia?
Equal involvement of all the four limbs will be quadriplegia. Diplegia.
In quadriplegia also, lower limbs are involved more than upper limbs. Any answers, Ashray?
Don't know, sir.
Okay. In quadriplegia, okay, sorry. There will be truncal involvement. Okay. What are the truncal involvements? Neck, vertebral involvement. These will be weak. Okay, this is called quadriplegia. As you told, diplegia, upper limb is more than lower limb. Sorry, upper limb is less and lower limb is more. That is diplegia. And we have characteristic scissoring posture, crawling, command or crawl. These are all the pointers telling that the child is having diplegia. And in double hemiplegia, there is upper limb more involved than lower. This basically both sides are involved. Here, trunk is not involved. Okay. This is because of stroke. So tell me causes of diplegia where the insult is.
Periventricular areas.
Yeah, periventricular leukomalacia. Quadriplegia, it's
Leukomalacia.
diffuse cortical involvement causing encephalomalacia, right? Okay. So I think we have discussed physical, topographical, etiological diagnosis of this child. And now coming to, we had global developmental, I mentioned intellectual disability as a DD. I'm sorry, it's global developmental delay, not intellectual disability. So we have, in our case, we had GDD as one of our DDs, and we had CP as one of our DDs. Okay. So first tell me what is the definition of CP?
A static motor deficit.
Static.
Which could.
Wait. Static encephalopathy. It's a disorder of static encephalopathy. It's a disorder of what?
Of the motor pathway.
Okay, it's a disorder of the posture and movement.
And
Okay, which is caused by
any perinatal, prenatal or postnatal insult.
so neurological insult in a developing brain. So I think definition of CP should be static encephalopathy, which is a disorder of posture and movement, which causes neurological insult, which is caused by neurological insult in a developing brain. So what is GDD? I think I have mentioned GDD definition in the beginning. What is the definition of GDD?
If there is more than 2 standard deviation of from the development, I mean of the developmental domains.
Significant developmental delay in more than significant developmental
More
delay
than-
in more than one. That is two domains, 2 developmental
More
domains.
than 2 domains.
Okay. So now how do you now in our case we had both, right? We had static encephalopathy, which is non-progressive. We have a disturbance of the posture and movement, which is seen in form of child was not able to sit. The child was not able to sit for a long duration of time. The child is not able to walk still. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we had a perinatal insult in the developing brain, which is perinatal hypoxia. Perinatal hypoxia we had. So this qualifies to be a CP. Now why should it not be GDD? Okay. Okay, it may be a GDD. Still, the child may be having a global developmental delay. What are the pointers to tell that this is not global? I mean, it is a global developmental delay. I'm not telling that it is not global developmental delay. It is a global developmental delay. What are the points to tell that it may not be? Okay, we have this child to be a global developmental delay. Okay, and why is it not intellectual ID? Okay,
Because a child has not yet crossed 5 years of age, so we
Very
can't
good.
really say if there's any intellectual problem.
very good.
And
It's not an intellectual problem. And if we forget the age, what are the other features that it will not be global developmental delay? I'm sorry, intellectual development.
so the social milestone was, I
Okay.
think, achieved.
So
So
the child's
one of
cognition. What about the cognition of the child?
the cognition was good.
So the child is having good cognition. That means that child is not having intellectual developmental delay. The child may not be having an intellectual impairment. Okay. What
Yes,
about
sir.
the in mental retardation? There will be some amount of hypotonia. Okay, and the child will be having there will be no any behavioral changes. No behavior, because the child will not be irritable. The child will be monotonous. The child will be lethargic all the times. But irritability, some amount of higher mental functions will be present in a case of CP child when compared to case of intellectual developmental child. Okay, intellectual disability child. So this we will tell that. See, this is still a case of GDD. You can't tell that this is not a case of GDD. Okay, but
Yes,
we have something else with GDD, right?
yes,
This
sir.
is not only GDD, this is GDD with CP. So now let us come to the diagnosis of the case. So tell me the diagnosis. You tell me the diagnosis on without seeing the screen.
Okay, sir. So diagnosis mostly, I mean, probably a spastic diplegic type of cerebral palsy, maybe because of birth asphyxia.
Okay. So first in diagnosis, you have to mention it's a case of static encephalopathy. You mentioned that.
Static spastic cerebral palsy. So
Okay, static encephalopathy or CP. You can mention. You can use both the terms.
okay, sir.
plus what is the physiological classification? It is
Physiologic.
the spastic, right?
Spastic. Yes, sir.
It's a spastic CP, right? It's not hypotonic, it's not athertotic,
No, no, sir. It's spastic.
it's a spastic CP.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is diplegia. You have mentioned these three things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have forgotten what about seizure? Where will that go? Is seizure?
Associated.
Yeah, it's an associated part. It is not a part of CP. Because seizure is not a component of CP. In CP, definition as it tells, it's a disorder of posture and movement, not of the seizure. So what kind of seizure this is?
What kind?
It's called developmental epilepsy.
Okay, sir.
So now coming to the definition, what is seizure? What is epilepsy?
If there are more than 2 episodes of seizure, it's called epilepsy.
Okay, epilepsy concept is clear. If there are more than 2 seizures which are 24 hours apart, it is called an epilepsy. So what is a seizure?
Seizure is any abnormal activity in the brain. Abnormal firing of neurons.
Abnormal firing of neurons due to an epileptogenic focus. Sorry, abnormal movement due to an epileptogenic focus. This is called
Okay.
seizure. Okay, so there is something called as non-convulsive seizure. There is an epileptogenic focus, but there is no abnormal movement. So non-convulsive, there is no abnormal movement, but there is seizure. That is, there is
Absent seizures.
no. Non-convulsive seizures are not absent seizures. Okay, they are something else.
Okay, sir.
Absent seizures, there is some amount of your motor arrest is there. You are not seeing, or you are not moving your limbs, right?
Okay, okay, sir. Yes, sir.
There is some amount of motor inactivity. In atonic seizure also, there is some amount of loss of tone. There is some amount of loss of your motor component. Okay, that is
Okay, sir.
motor CP.
Yes, sir.
It is convulsive CP. In convulsive CP, what happens is the child will be comatose.
Okay.
And there will be some amount of epileptogenic focus. There will be some amount of misfiring in the brain going on, which will cause damage to the brain. That is called non-convulsive CP. No, sorry, non-convulsive seizures. Okay.
Okay, sir.
That is something called non-convulsive seizures. We know what seizure is. We know what epilepsy is. Are there any questions to be asked?
Sir, could you please repeat non-convulsive seizure? That is one of the questions.
Okay. Non-convulsive CP is non-convulsive seizure is see what is convulsion is a physical manifestation of seizure. It will be most probably be motor manifestation. There may be some amount of sensory manifestation also. Okay, but it is most probably motor manifestation. So in a non-convulsive CP, this physical manifestation will not be there. Okay, in a non-convulsive CP, non-convulsive seizure, I'm extremely sorry, non-convulsive seizure, there will be no physical manifestation. Example is a comatose child. A comatose child, you connect an EEG to a comatose child. There will be hips arrhythmia going on in the background activity of the child, or there will be epileptogenic focus in the child where there may be some spikes in his EEG, but the child will be absolutely normal. I mean, the child will be absolutely in a coma stage. There will be no convulsion. There will be no any other manifestation. There will be no autonomic disturbances. There will be no any, obviously there will be no any sensory disturbances. There will be no any micturition. There will be no any defecation. This is called non-convulsive seizures, right? I think the concept is clear. So,
Yes, sir.
so is our paint. Okay. So we have diagnosed this to be a case of CP, a static encephalopathy with the spastic CP, diplegic CP with one thing we left with the
Global
developmental
developmental
epilepsy.
epilepsy.
Okay. Was the child malnourished?
No, sir.
Okay. One important point I forgot is that you have to, in your anthropometry, you have to mention until 5 years in terms of standard deviation by using WHO growth charts. You should not use your percentiles, right?
Okay, sir.
Till 5 years, you should use standard deviation. Y is -2 to -3 standard deviation. If the weight for height is lying in between these two values, it is MAP. Okay, and 15th percentile will fall under MAP. Okay, so the child is having some amount of malnourishment. You can tell it is malnutrition, not malnourishment. Moderate malnutrition you can mention. Next, what is this thing we left? What is GMFS score?
To see whether he's able to walk with support, without support, or
yes,
gross motor.
Yeah, function classification, right? This is something that you have to mention in your diagnosis. So now, what are the classification of GMFS? We'll see. Okay, there are 5 classifications.
5 levels. Yes.
Okay. So what is 1?
Ambulatory in
child is ambulatory, and 5 is?
5 is dependent for mobility.
Dependent for mobility. Okay. This is very clear. Mobility 1 and 5 is very clear. 2, 3, 4. What is 2?
He's able to walk, but then he does not require any aid to walk. But then there's some amount of limitation when he's moving around in the society.
Okay. So we'll have confused between 2 and 3. Okay. What is 4?
4 is he needs any assistance, like wheelchair or something, to walk, or any adult should assist the child to walk.
So you're confused between 2, 3, and 4. Fine. Okay. So here you require assisted devices. Sorry, you don't require assisted devices. No assisted devices. Here assisted devices are required. Here assisted devices that are motor. Supposing a wheelchair, which is controlled by a motor, is required. Okay, no assisted devices required, but the child is not able to move in a community setting. The child is able to move inside his house, but without any assisted devices. But once he goes out of the house, he requires some amount of what you call it, orthosis, some amount of sticks, walker, whatever you call it. He requires some amount of those the support of a stick or something. He requires those things. That is called grade 2. In grade 3, he requires assisted devices even in home. Here he is using motor. So I think, any confusion? Should I explain again?
Got it, sir.
Got it, right? Fine. So in our child is what classification GMFS does he come?
Grade 3.
I don't know, because you have not mentioned anything regarding those things. You have not told anything regarding those things. Okay, so this is our diagnosis for today. Okay, so it is a CP child with spastic diplegic grade 3 GMFS classification, who is having developmental epilepsy with moderate malnutrition, without any anti-epileptics, now improving with treatment. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So now coming to the treatment part. Okay, regarding that thing we'll study later. Let us come to treatment. How do you grade treatment? Okay, I'll repeat GMFC, don't worry.
Grading, I don't know, sir.
So I'll repeat, you don't worry. Now tell me the treatment part.
treatment, because of spasticity, the child can be put on baclofen or benzodiazepines. For epilepsy, anti-epileptics like valproate, then any proper rehabilitation therapy like speech therapy, etc., should be given, and
Okay.
mainly emotional support. Counsel the parents and.
Okay. Basically, the treatment consists of, first of all, it is seizure. First of all, you have to give something known as support in growth and nutrition. Okay. You have to improve the nutrition of the child. Our child is malnourished, right?
Yes, sir.
So you have to give a plan that the child takes certain amount of calories per day with certain amount of protein per day. A plan should be done. Once his nutrition has improved, his weakness, his other disabilities, such as any electrolyte imbalance or any amount of vitamin or mineral deficiency, which may cause some of the weaknesses in the child, may improve. No, I'm not writing, guys. Next is you have to see whether there is hearing impairment or whether there is any visual impairment in the child. These are all associated symptoms. Okay, basically you treat the associated symptoms, not the. These are the you treat the basic CP first. I mean, you treat the associated symptoms. There may be dental problems. There may be, as in our child, we had repeated respiratory tract infection. You have to treat the respiratory tract infection, or if there is any some amount of respiratory distress, you have to address those things. Next is you have to treat his. You have to give a proper hygienic chart to the child regarding his oral and other hygienic manifestations. And coming to seizure control, you have to give epilepsy, as mentioned by Bhavya. And coming to the posture and regarding his motor developmental, motor disabilities, you have to give some amount of baclofen for spasticity. Okay. So what is the role of botulinum toxin here?
Botulinum, again, it can help in relieving the spasticity of the muscles by inhibiting acetylcholine.
There are certain other modalities of treatment, such as intrathecal rhizotomy. Sorry, intrathecal baclofen. There may be rhizotomy, which is cutting off the nerves which are supplying these spastic muscles. Intrathecal baclofen is again a neuromuscular blockade, and we have botulinum toxin, which causes relieving of spasticity. All these can be tried if there is no any contractures that has developed, right?
Yes,
other than
sir.
that, we have to go with the seizure control. Any surgical management has been told. The intrathecal baclofen and rhizotomy, these are all the surgical part of the. What are the complications? Last part.
Contractures.
Contractures.
Then because of aspiration, it can lead to aspiration pneumonia.
What is the cause of death in all these childs?
Pneumonia, aspiration pneumonia.
Aspiration pneumonia is one of the cause of death in these. Most common cause of death is aspiration pneumonia. Okay. So I think that sums up the class for today. Ashton, any doubts?
Just seeing the chat, sir.
Okay. So, okay, I will explain GMFS once again.
GFMS only, sir. GMFS only.
Once again. And what is something regarding standard deviation of WHO moderate? This is basically for anthropometrical evaluation, right? Ambulatory, grade 1, he is ambulatory everywhere. Grade 2, he is ambulatory at home, but at community level, he is not. So he uses orthosis at the community level. That is to say that when he goes out of help from orthosis. Whereas grade 3, he is not ambulatory even at home. So he requires assisted device at home, such as walker. And all these assisted devices are non-motor. Whereas in grade 4, he requires assisted devices which incorporate a motor, such as there may be a motor wheelchair. In 5th, he can't even operate these motor wheelchairs also. These also cannot be operated by this person. So he is bedridden. Even with the assisted devices, he can't use. Okay. This is regarding GMFS. Regarding standard deviations, until 5 years of age, you have to use WHO growth charts, which has standard deviations, weight, height, head circumference, chest circumference. This may or may not be used, but weight for height, head circumference, MUS. This has to be mentioned up till 5 years. Above 5 years, you have to use IAP growth charts. And you can use any of the things. You can use standard deviation or percentage. And you have to mention weight, height, and BMI. Some book mentions more than 2 years. Some book mentions more than 5 years. Basically, WHO growth charts are for until 2 years, but Indian IAP has told that you can use these growth charts up to 5 years also. Okay. What is this cognitive assessment? Okay.
They want to know how cognitive assessment is done in kids.
Okay. There are two types. There are three types of assessment. One is surveillance. One is screening. One is assessment. Okay. This is developmental assessment. This is cognitive assessment. For your answer, how do you do cognitive assessment? It is by Binet and Stanford intelligence scale. Okay. In India, you use Vineyard. Okay, these are all the tools. You can't calculate IQ by using your calculator or something. You need these tools, Binet or Vineyard. Okay, and for development, you have DASI. Developmental assessment of an Indian infant. Okay, these are the tools which assess DQ and IQ. So this is for diagnosis. The whole thing is for diagnosis. Screening is when you suspect and when you have to when you have to screen these people, you use Trivandrum, Baroda, all these tools. Okay. Surveillance is a patient will come to you or a doctor in the OPD and he sees whether the child is having whether the child has attained milestones or not, whether the child is having attained head control or not, whether the child is having poor cognition. This is what is called surveillance. He is not using any chart or any tools. This is called surveillance. Okay, if you have to screen, there are again tools, which is Trivandrum or the Baroda. And for assessment, you use assessment is for diagnosis, you use DASI. So what are the early markers of symptoms? Early markers of C. The question is in our history, right? Okay, I'll discuss regarding whole. Okay, what are the motor markers? What are the symptoms? Okay. The child will be having behavior problem. The child will be irritable. The child will be fussy. It will not go to everyone. Okay, there will be some amount of stranger anxiety, increased increased behavioral problems. These are all the early symptoms which you can suspect CP. There will be oromotor involvement, such as there will be drooling of saliva, reduced intake of feed. There may be vomiting frequently. Okay, these are the symptoms. Mind you, these are the symptoms, not the diagnosis. Okay, right? There may be poor mobility. Still, in these symptoms, you have to keep CP as one of your needs. Okay, there may be poor head control. Poor mobility includes poor head control, hand preference, and abnormal tone. Abnormal tone may be dystonia. Right? Now coming to motor symptoms. Handedness and fisting. Persistence of neonatal what do you call this? Primitive reflexes. These are all the pointers towards. See, we had persistent primitive reflex in our child. We have fisting. Some amount of handedness was being told. We had drooling. In our case, these were the early pointers for our case to tell that as CP. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's good. Okay, then we'll wrap up the case today. Good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Then thank you, sir, for spending your time with us, sir.